Alright, this is how you edit a basic Sunday service. I've already started at 9:30 here, but I'm going to start over again with 11. So the files get recorded and named, capture, and then a number. And so if you double click the file and shuttle it forward and play it, you can tell which service it is by seeing this is the choir in the video, so this is definitely 11 o'clock. So the first step is you just simply drag the movie to the new document icon and it'll create a sequence of the same name and then rename it. And the convention is year, month, day, the word Sunday or whatever the service is, and then the time, and then the word edit. So 2017-05-28 Sunday 11 o'clock edit. You can't have a colon, so just do the numbers. And then you'll see that it creates a sequence with the entire video and 16 audio channels, because the way the recorder works, it records 16 audio channels. So the easy way to delete all these channels is hold the Option key on the keyboard and select all the extra tracks and then hit delete, and then you click anywhere here in this gray spot on the audio track, right click or Option click and click delete tracks, and then check delete all empty tracks for audio and video and click OK. And then the other thing I like to do is once that's done is I drag this audio channel and make it a lot taller so I can really see it, because really the easiest way to edit is by looking at the audio track. So you can see this is really soft here. Well, that's the CD playing before the service. So if you go to here, that's the beginning. And you can, the default keyboard shortcut for zoom is plus and minus for zoom in and out. You can also set a keyboard shortcut for zoom to sequence. And I have this set to the above the return key, the slash key. And so if I hit that key, it'll zoom all the way back out to the sequence. And if I hit it again, it zooms back to where I was. So then what you do is you play, and you find when the music first starts. Sometimes there's those little false kind of noise, and you can cut that out. Use the left and right arrows to go frame at a time. I'm going to hit out, and I'm going to hit the apostrophe, which is extract. And then I'm going to hit Command. I have the keyboard shortcuts Command D and Shift Command D set to add dissolve and add audio dissolve, and now you end up with this. So it fades at the beginning. So now you hit your slash key to zoom out. You find where the waveform changes, obviously. Scrub around, hit the slash again, find your point a little more closely. And generally I start right before Dan starts talking, so you can see that waveform there is Dan. So I can't remember if this is a default shortcut or not, but you can use the razor or create a keyboard shortcut for under sequence, add edit to all tracks. So Shift Command K is what I have for that. I think Command K does it too. Yeah, I have mine set to Command K. And so you have a razor cut, and then hit Shift Command D and Command D again to add fades. And the reason why is later we're going to normalize this audio. So you just repeat that for every place in the sequence where something changes. So beginning and end of announcements. The only one that's kind of tricky to find is the between the hymns. So here's the end of the announcements, beginning of the song, and it doesn't have to be precise as long as it's in the general area. Oh, the other part I forgot to say is if you go under a marker or add chapter marker here, I have set the option Shift M sets a new chapter marker. So Shift Option M, and you get this dialog box and it says chapter marker, and then all I do is I hit the enter key or click OK, and now I've added a chapter marker here, and I need to go back to the previous edit, which you can hit the up and down arrows, Shift Option M, arrow, forgot, Shift Option M, and now I can zoom back out and I just continue making all these edits. Okay, continuing our editing, there's a couple tricky spots in the 11 o'clock service, and one of them is after the offering, there's this fade out, and then they go into the doxology. And there's some dead air there. You can choose to add out. I usually don't unless it's really long. Other places in the service where there's dead air, was a long silence, you want to edit out at 11 o'clock. At 9:30 you want to not do this until after you get the replacement audio from Nick. So there's the doxology and then the greet one another, and that can be one chapter. You don't have to add another stop, but you do need to do a razor because the volume is different. So find where Dan stops find where Dan starts talking.
Bless us. So
and add a razor and a dissolve. And then for the beginning of the hymn, there's this music part, and what I do is I usually at the end of the music, before they start singing, is where I add the chapter marker, where the music, the measure kind of comes back. So there's where it comes before the song. So that's where the chapter marker is going to go. Also, what you have to remember to do is back here in the two hymns together, you need to make sure you add a chapter marker. Then after this offering song, there's usually a bumper video. And what you can do for that is, you want to, if you can get a copy of the original bumper movie, you import that, and then you're going to drop that in here on its own track for right now. And then depending on what resolution that is, you have to right click and scale to frame size, and it's not quite true HD, so it's a little bit small, but I think once we finish it won't be noticeable. So zoom back out, go back to the end of the movie, and right before Jamie starts talking, we can razor. And then the difference with this is you actually want to delete this whole original clip. And so it's gone, and then drag the video into that track there. But leave the audio on its own track, because these two are mono tracks panned left and right, which we forgot to do. So you go in here to audio track mixer, and all you gotta do is tap the L on that, tap the R on that, and now these two tracks are panned left and right. So you can see the volumes are different. But the video needs to be put in on its own track because it's in stereo. So, and then you go back to the beginning of the video and you add a dissolve. And you want to go also add an audio dissolve to the end of this. And then go back to the end of the beginning of the sermon. Shift Command D. Make sure nothing's selected. Okay, apparently if you have a space like this, you can right click Ripple Delete and it'll pull it together. So fix the dissolve, audio dissolve.
that's right.
And then sometimes when you add this audio dissolve, you find you're kind of losing Jamie. So there's two options. One is you can hold Option and select just the audio and then drag it back a little bit so the audio is done before you start speaking. The other option will be just to make the audio shorter. So now,
that's right.
There we go. So zoom back out to the sequence and find the end of the sermon. Zoom in, scroll until you find when Jamie's done and Jeff starts. And go as close to the Jeff speaking as possible. Cut, dissolve. Oh, just did not cut all the tracks. Dissolve. And then the other thing is, see, we didn't get a copy of the sermon title in here, so you need to get it somewhere. So the easiest place to get it is here at the beginning of the sermon. We usually have a clean copy of it. And this is how you get a copy of the sermon without having to go back to Purpose Center. See this camera icon? Export frame. So click that, piece out title grab, use it as JPEG. Do have import into project checked, because then it'll put it into the project. And you want to browse and make sure it actually puts it in the right folder or into a root folder that you can get to. Choose, click OK. Now I have a copy of the sermon title. So it's at the beginning of the sermon, but not at the end. So now what we want to do is zoom in a little bit closer and drag the video title to its own track and kind of watch it. And it's okay to not see Jeff a bit. So once it's on track and you like your timing, drag it down to the main track and add dissolves to the beginning and the end of the title, and now it'll look like this.
In the strong name of Jesus, we all agree. Well, let's stand together and sing our closing hymn.
And we didn't add our chapter marker there, so we need chapter marker. And then we don't need it. chapter marker between Jeff speaking and the beginning of the hymn, but we do need one at the end of the hymn.
No.
So razor, dissolve, and then find the end of Jamie talking or whoever's doing the benediction. Do another razor and another audio dissolve. And then sometimes what you need to do is we didn't go to the credits right away because we weren't ready. So you can lift out a little bit of this. This is not a case where that's true. It was pretty fast. So do find the very last credit where it goes to black. And hit the I for in and apostrophe for extract. Command D, Shift Command D. All right, once you've got everything all done, you can see audio is all over the place. So what you do is hit Command A to select all, right click anywhere, and click audio gain. And then this is important. You don't want to adjust the gain specifically. You want to normalize all peaks to 0. What this will do is it will look at every single audio piece, and left and right are separate files, so look at them separately, and normalize each chunk to be all the way normalized. So this speaking sermon that's a little softer will get normalized to be the same volume as the music, which will get normalized to the top. So if you click OK, this can take a little while. All right, I've normalized all the clips. You can see now they're all closer to the top, but you can also see I missed a chapter mark. So pretty much everywhere there's a razor, there should be a chapter mark. So between the sermon bumper and the sermon, I forgot to add one. So I'm going to add one right here, right before James starts talking. And I'm going to zoom back out to the sequence, and I also forgot to put one after this closing hymn. So we're going to put one there, and then put one between Jamie and the credits. And then the last place I like to put a chapter marker is right here on this slide that says to order a copy, etc. And then that's done. And there's an audio dissolve and a video dissolve at the end. So now we have the entire sequence all done. And then what you want to do is one last check. You want to play each clip and kind of listen to see if it sounds pretty good. Make sure that it's not peaking. If it's peaking, you probably forgot to pan the tracks because it'll be combining left and right into one channel, and so it'll be too loud. Also, like I said, if you have a video, make sure it's panned to center. And play each section. What we're listening for is we're listening that the volume sounds right and that it's not too noisy.
Summer months of June and such, and I wanted to let you know.
So there's Dan. That sounds pretty good. If he's a little bit soft, if he's not peaking like he should, a really good effect to add is you go in here to the effects palette and you type noise. Type COMP for compression, and this multiband compressor in the latest version, not the one that says obsolete, you drag it to the clip, it'll assign it to both channels, and now
mission emphasis is welcoming our new neighbor.
Jamie should
to the apartments.
Dan should be a little bit louder now, and if it still doesn't seem like it got louder, go in here to effect controls, and because it's two separate audio tracks, you have to edit both. So go in here, make sure it's set to broadcast, and click edit, and then bump the gain up by the same amount on both channels. So there's 3 dB there. You can also click the blue number, type number 3, hit OK, close it, and now play it.
Office building.
So you want to be closer to this 12 here. The hymns shouldn't need any volume adjustment.
To heaven and sit it.
So here's another part with Dan. Now once you've applied that effect, because this is Dan speaking again, we can actually use the same effect. So go click the clip that has the effect on already, click the name of the effect, Command C to copy, click the clip you want to paste it on. It will highlight both audio channels, and when you hit Command V to paste, it will paste it to both audio channels.
The third day he rose.
So now Dan's better, like the 12 mark where he should be. This is another video that we played during that service.
Because of who you are.
And here's another piece with Dan. So we're going to paste the effect again. And here's Dan for the greeting.
We ask for your guidance that these resources.
Now, for whatever reason, that clip is already louder, but I'm going to make it more even, I'm going to add the effect
Lord,
after all.
That we in turn might.
And other thing is, if you have a video, it should also be normalized, because if you watch this, it's not. So I'm going to audio gain, normalize to 0, normalize the bumper. So now the bumper should be closer to 12. All right, now for the sermon. Now the sermon, Jamie's volume is pretty consistent here, but he's right under negative 12. So we already added that effect to Dan, but we're going to actually put a clean copy of the compressor on here because then it won't have the gain, and now it's the default settings.
The reality is, God not only seemed quiet, God seemed silent. I wasn't.
And I don't know if you can hear it in this, but there's a little bit of an echo. There's nothing we can do about echo, but if there's a buzz or a noise, that we can fix by using the denoiser. So go over here to the effects palette and type NOISE for noise, and this adaptive noise reduction here is the one that's used. And the default settings for it are rather aggressive. So this doesn't need noise reduction, but I'm going to demonstrate it just so you can see how it works. So we drag this to here. It applies noise reduction to both clips. Now here's what's important is, if you got to think about the sequence of your filters. They will run from top to bottom. So in other words, the way it's set up now, the multiband compressor runs first, evening out the volume, and then noise reduction works. So the noise reduction is trying to fight an inconsistent volume because of the compressor. So if you have both multiband and adaptive noise reduction, the noise reduction needs to happen first. It needs to be the top most effect. And again, you have to do that to both the left and right channel if the audio channels are separate. So now I'm going to play this with just the default noise reduction.
Hearing anything from God about a direction on which way to go. And quite frankly, I got impatient.
And again, this clip didn't really need the noise reduction, so I'm not noticing much of a change. So I'm actually going to go ahead and take the effect off. But now you know how to change it. The other thing to know is these are the presets. That's the compressor preset. So this is the adaptive noise reduction. You click this to get your presets. And if it's the default is too heavy, I generally pick light and then listen again and see if it's okay. The other thing you have to do when you're applying any audio effect is let it play for a little while, because what Adobe Premiere is doing is it's rendering the audio effect on the fly while you're playing it. So it may take a moment or two, depending on the speed of your computer, for the audio effect to be audible. So, but we don't need the noise reduction, so I am going to remove that. All right, so here's some additional notes you have to do in order to edit the 930 service. So just like with the 8 and 11 service we've created a sequence. This service happens to be missing the very beginning of the service, so I just added an audio and video fade to the beginning, and at the very end I've done nothing, and I've done no razors, no chapter markers, nothing, because I want to make sure I have the audio synchronized first. Now you can add the chapter markers ahead of time and then add the audio later, as long as you don't lift out any dead air spaces or change the timing, because you have to make sure that the audio for the entire service will line up. So double click. I usually put the audio file, it comes from Nick in Dropbox, and then I copy it to the project folder and click import. And then this is how you do it. Make sure you can, even if there's no extra track, if you drag the audio down here below, it'll create an extra track. Select all tracks, go to clip, synchronize, and then make sure that audio track 1 is selected, or track 2, it doesn't matter, and click OK. And it will analyze the audio and try to line it up. So once the audio is synchronized, you may need to go zoom into the very beginning and make sure that it lines up. Now again, this service was missing parts that already was recorded, but you would find an endpoint, hit O for out, and extract the clip. And make sure that you don't move them together. Select this clip, select unlink. That will separate the audio and video to separate things. Click the video, click shift, click the audio, right click, and link. And now it will treat this audio and video as if they are one clip. And then you can delete, or just, I usually like to just mute the extra channels and leave them in there just in case I need them for something. And then you'll do the same thing you do by finding the waveforms and replacing videos and adding your chapter markers. One additional step I forgot to mention about the 930 is go to the end of the service. They usually do a live postlude. Go to the very end of that song. And then you want, I've already done it, but you want to, from the moment of the end of the song, you want to hit in and then find where the beginning of the credits is and hit out and extract that section. Then this black and white version of the credits, if you go to the effects palette and you type the word LUMA for Luma key and you drag this onto the clip, it won't appear to have done anything other than make it darker. But the other part is find where this last order a copy slide is and hit, while this clip is selected, hit M, it'll add a marker. Drag this clip to the track above and put the marker right at the end of the song performance right there. And now the Luma key, I'll have keyed it over top of the last song. Watch to see if this faded up, and it did not. So click, make sure the second video track is selected. Go to the beginning, hit Command D, and then check the end to see if the end fades out. And the end fades out by itself. So it should look something like this. And the last thing is the actual video of the service needs to fade out, and then on audio fade out on the end of the recording. And it is okay for this last bit to be in silence. Do not leave in the CD track played as walkout as part of the video. Another note on the 930 that's different is because this is a stereo audio file coming from Nick, when you replace a video roll-in, you can put it on the same track. Just add audio dissolves to make sure that if people clapped after the video or anything like that, or if Jamie starts talking before the video is over. If the video is a kind that has a long tail and Jamie talks over the tail, then you would want to have the video on its own track in order to make sure that that long audio tail had time to be heard and Jamie could be heard talking over that. All right, we've got this all set. We have all the clips, all the chapter marks, etc. created, and now we're ready to save this. So make sure that the sequence is selected either by clicking the window or clicking the name of the sequence here in your bin. Go to File, Export Media. If you're doing this on my main Macintosh, I've already built presets. They're all under H.264. And this very top section is presets I've created. And this one here, 1080i Service Master, is what you want to start with. So click 1080i Service Master. Also check, look at what's trying to be rendered. It's not the right thing. It's not the right thing selected. It's trying to render out the movie, this JPEG. So you need to click this window again. Go to File, Export Media. Now we see the right thumbnail. We see the name is automatically named the name of the sequence. And H.264, 1080i Service Master. The other setting that will mess you up is you need to make sure you click entire sequence, not in out. Just in case you happen to have an in or out marked, you don't want to mistakenly export only a part of the service. Now this 1080i Service Master does a couple things. For the most part, it outputs the same original 1080i source, but it also runs some additional audio filters to make sure that the audio is exactly normalized. There's some effects in here, some different settings. It does some additional normalization here after it's rendered, etc. So entire sequence, and then click the Q button. Adobe Media Encoder will open. It may not show the sequence right away. It may take just a moment for the sequence to show up in the Adobe Media Encoder bin, but now you see the name and then also mouse over this to make sure it's saving it to the right directory. I save all the renders to the same folder, that way I can easily find them and also easily clean up ones once I'm done. Now we want to make a couple other formats for this. This 1080i is the master. Now it's not full quality because it is an H.264 file, but it is high enough quality that it would hold up to editing again in the unlikely event that we needed to edit it again. It creates about a 8 gig file as opposed to a 110 gigabyte file for the full Apple ProRes QuickTime file. Now we want to create a couple other formats of the same thing. So once you've added one in here, you can go down here to these presets, and again I've made several presets that you can use. So the service DVD master, you drag that and drag it to the name here, not to this, because if you drag it here to this render setting, it will replace these settings with the setting you are dragging. But if you drag it to the name here, it will add another render of the same video in a different format, and it will render these all at the same time. So that way, if there's a special effect or anything like that, the effect doesn't have to be rendered more than once, but it does have to compress the video into more than one format. So it's a lot faster to render these this way than it is to queue them up completely separately. Unless you're in a hurry to get a certain format out, then you may want to separate them. The last format is that I have a Vimeo publish bracket private, and this renders a 720p version of the service, which is smaller for publishing to Vimeo because we do have a file size limit on Vimeo. And this preset is supposed to upload to Vimeo automatically for us, but it doesn't always work. But so I render it that way anyway. So once those are all queued up, what you'd like to do is edit both the 11 and the 930, queue them up, hit this play button, and then go get another laptop and work on another project on another computer, because this computer is going to be pretty tied up for maybe about 30 minutes per service to 45 minutes per service. You will find that it doesn't render these all at exactly the same speed. The DVD one actually does tend to render faster than the other two. I've added the 930 to the render queue as well now, and 11 o'clock has finished rendering. It did end up taking about 30 to 45 minutes for it to render, and the 930 should take about the same length of time. But one thing I forgot to do when I rendered 11 o'clock that I'm going to show you how to do now in the 930 is to make sure once these are all done rendered that you know which one is which. Even though this one has a different ending, you'll see both this file and this file have MP4 as an ending. Now this is the 720p Vimeo file, and this is the 1080i master. So what I like to do is click the name, and I'll let you name the file once it's rendered. And I like to do space, bracket, and then all caps the word master, and then a closing square bracket. And you click save. So that's how you name the master. And then this one here, the _1, which is the Vimeo, you can delete the _1 and then you bracket the word Vimeo, close square bracket, and hit enter to accept that. And then the DVD one, while it's somewhat redundant, I still like to add the word DVD to the file name. That way, if I search for the date and the word DVD, I am going to find this and any other related files. And click save. So the 930 is now queued to render, and I can click play to render it. Alright, now we're going to show you how to make the actual DVD of a worship service, which is pretty easy, but there are a couple of gotchas you got to watch out for. So we're going to use a very similar naming convention. All the DVDs get saved into the worship services folder, again, to make it easy to clean them up later, because we don't need to keep these projects. So 2017, 05, 28, 11 o'clock, and then the words DVD, because that just makes it easier to find. And click make sure it's a DVD and it's NTSC, which should be your default settings. You shouldn't have to change anything with the transcode settings because we've already created a MPEG file that's DVD compliant using Adobe Media Encoder, and click OK. So you have an empty project with nothing, but the easiest thing to do is you right click in here, click import as, click the word timeline, and then you find that Adobe Media Encoder will have created a WAV and an M2V file separately. So the M2V is the picture, the video part, and the WAV file is the audio part. And so you click one, and then you hold Command and click the other. And so then you have audio and video both selected, and then you click Open. And when you do this, it will automatically create a sequence with the same name, and if you've created your chapter markers correctly, all of your chapter markers will appear. And just wait just a moment for it to read the file, and then you'll be done. So now the DVD is ready. There's a couple things we got to change and check. First thing is click the timeline. This icon here for the timeline. Also, this little tiny white circle in the corner is what Adobe Encore uses to denote the first play. So when you insert this DVD, it will just play this video first. But you do have to declare what will happen when it's done. So under here, under End Action, you're going to click this fly out menu and click Stop. So when the movie is done, it will just stop. Menu or remote you don't have to change. These other settings don't have to change. And then So that's set. You're then going to go to the Build tab and give it a name. And I call it the whole spelled out date. So this would be May 28, 2017, 11 o'clock, worship service. And then click out of that box to accept it. And you're going to want to click Check Project. Now when you click Check Project, this dialog box pops up. Leave everything set and click the word Start. Now it did find a problem. It says the title remote is not set. That is because we did not create a menu for this DVD, and that is not an actual problem. So you can ignore this error, but if there's any other errors that occur, you need to make sure that that gets fixed. And double clicking this and then closing it will usually go to where the problem is and find it. The thing you most often are going to forget is you're going to forget to set this end action here. Do make sure that you don't run that check until this video is done. So we go back to the Build tab. You want to format DVD, output DVD disk. You want to create it using the current project. These should all be the settings unless you used something else previously. And this shows you how much space out of a standard 4.7 gig disk will be used. This is part of the reason why we render the MPEG file ahead of time using Media Encoder. Because Encore is no longer developed and updated, I found that when you allow Encore to render internally, first of all, it takes a lot longer because it's using older codecs and older settings that don't maximize use of all the processors in your computer. Second, it has a tendency to render the file bigger than it needs to be in order to fit on a DVD. So a lot of times if you have a file that's 2 hours long and you try to get it to fit on a 4.7 gig disk, it'll for whatever reason render a 5.2 gigabyte disk. So that's not good. So make sure you have, if you're on a modern Mac that doesn't have a DVD-ROM drive, you'll need a DVD-ROM externally. Insert a blank disk into the DVD burner. Mac OS X will pop up a dialog box asking what you want to do with the DVD when you insert it in, like this. You can just don't do anything. You can click ignore or do nothing, and then you're going to click build. Again, it says the project has problems that may cause disk to play incorrectly. That's the one problem we chose to ignore earlier. But if you haven't actually checked your errors, you can click view here to show you the check project dialog. So we're going to go ahead and hit build again. We're going to hit ignore and continue. And now it will burn the DVD, and when it is done burning the DVD, it will eject it. Make sure that you label the service with the date and the words DVD master, and then you'll be done.